the voice actors panel. Is that what it's called?
What is it called? I don't have a program.
I think you got the gist.
We don't have a moderator, so we're totally unmoderated.
I was in the impression we had a moderator.
Oh, are you the moderator?
No, I didn't sign up for this.
Do we need to introduce ourselves? My name is Stephanie Shay, and I do voices. In English, not your English. The one that sounds funny. For like Naruto and Bleach and K-On! And Eureka 7. I don't know what shows you guys have gotten or not gotten. And in Haruhi, Lucky Star, things like that. Gundam. This is Michael.
That was a fantastic introduction. I'm Michael. I hear voices. I voice act, I direct, I have a studio that's in New York and Los Angeles. Those are in America. And I used to live here, where I grew up eating Monster Munch, usually the beef flavor, but they've changed the ingredients, I think, and it doesn't taste the same as it used to in my youth. But the Flaming Hots and Pickled Onions are very good. And I'm working on Gundam now. Even as we speak, I'm on my phone, I'm working on Gundam. And Naruto, Bleach, other Full Metal Alchemist, Summer Wars, which just screened this morning. Whee! Eden of the East. Other non-anime things I've done. G.I. Joe, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, those are anime. I just saw a girl magician and I got very excited at the shop because I played the Dark Magician and I always get squealing when I see another magician. The funny cone hat. Non-anime things include G.I. Joe, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, right on, thanks. And then, and a show that I don't think is shown here, but the Venture Brothers. Okay, wait, but is it shown here? The Great Equalizer. Great, so I play Deep Venture on the Venture Brothers, and stuff like that. And now, the man whose hair I'm trying to emulate, but cannot come close, Matthew.
So we have speak voices, hear voices. By default, I see voices. But yeah, voice actor. Been not working in the industry as long as these folk. They made me want to be in the industry.
What does that mean? Are you calling me old?
I'm calling you seasoned. No, badge is worthy. This is a positive thing.
By seasoned, do you mean pickled?
I meant more peppered, really. Began doing anime and early old Wallace stuff and like Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, as like second guy screaming, ah! Or heads exploding into North Star. A lot of heads exploding. Lots of heads exploding. Went on to do Akira and then did a lot of video game work, like Star Ocean, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, World of Warcraft. And now working on the new Thundercats on Cartoon Network, which I think aired this week. Yeah. Where I play Tiger. So anyway, back to the panel. Yay.
I don't know how these things work here, but usually we just let people ask questions, right?
Yeah, Q&A.
Do you guys have questions? Maybe we should just go down the line and tell the stories of how we got into the business.
Sure.
Do you guys know already, or do you? My story is not normal, so I can't tell people to be like, oh, you should do this, you know. I started out as a producer. Well, before that, I started out as an otaku, really. And because I was an otaku, I got a job producing English language dubs because I really thought all the dubs sucked. And I thought that I could do better. But this is a long time ago. So after I graduated, I got a job producing, and then I got my foot in the door because I was able to audition I still had to audition for the shows that I produced. And so my first 2 roles were in Furikuri and Tenshi ni Narumon, which is I'm Gonna Be an Angel, which they never finished being released in the States. So that's kind of like what happened with me, and then like that company did not do very well because they, at that time, God, this is gonna sound really old, at that time it was right when we were switching from VHS to DVD, or the industry was. And so like they had still kind of like decided that they were going to also make VHS production, and then literally within like a year and a half, like nobody was touching any VHS tapes. They had like all the stock and all the stuff, that's it. So it was a little bit, so they didn't do well, and so then the company folded, and they said, hey, you can keep your job if you want to do sales and marketing. And then I said, no, it's okay, I think I'm going to pursue acting full time.
I too started my life off as a fan of animation and otaku. Back in my day, we didn't have well, there was an internet, kind of. It was BBS's, you know. My friends and I in high school, actually. Well, I'd watch stuff. Ooh, nice one. Yeah, there'll be a lot more burping in the next panel. Come back to that. Thank you. I used to burp actually on Ninja Turtles. I played Leonardo, but the guy that played Michelangelo couldn't sort of burp on command, so he would do his line, and then I would burp for him, and then he wanted to use his burp. Yeah, I was stunt burp for Mikey. But that's not how I got started in the industry. I watched lots of anime. We used to have to go to, ooh, here comes bottles of water. There was a place in Times Square in New York called Tokyo Video, and not that anyone here is going to correct me, but they had a section on anime, and it was all stuff taped off of television. And we'd go in there and rent it, and it had commercials in it. No subs, no translations of any kind, no liner notes, just old rotten VHSs from Tokyo Television. And it was fun to see the commercials, but we'd have to watch them over and over again to sort of figure out what's going on. So watching it raw was how we did it back in my day. And then I studied theater kind of my whole life. In London, when I lived here, because I used to live in London. I went to Italia Conti Stage School, and that's where I started sort of learning about acting. And then I went to high school in New York at the school where they made the movie and TV show Fame, the High School Performing Arts. And then I went to a conservatory to study classical theater in North Carolina. So weirdly, in North Carolina, I heard about auditions for Writing Bean, and none of the actors in town knew what a Writing Bean was. Is it a food? Is it something worse? Or is it a horse? It's a Mexican jumping mare. But I knew what it was, and then I wanted to audition for it, but I couldn't. But then I got to audition for the next round of things, which was Bubblegum Crisis, and they had a cattle call, and I was number 273. And after the audition, I kind of fanboyed out and was like, by the way, I know what this is all about. And they're like, sorry? And I was like, yeah, I've seen the series, and I like anime.
Did you intentionally withhold that information from them when you auditioned?
No, I blurted it out at the end of my audition.
Oh, at the end.
They're like, thank you, next. And I was like, I like this stuff, and I'm a fanboy. And they were like, okay, thank you, sorry. So I left, and then I got a call to come and do an incidental part. And then I geeked out with one of the guys at the studio about audio technology. He was using a Korg Poly 800, which, as you all know, is not a multi-timbral synthesizer. Well, no, it's multi-timbral, but it's not velocity sensitive. So he's triggering sound effects into an Akai S1000, and I was like, why are you using a trigger that doesn't have velocity sensitivity? And he's like, well, I want to write in the volumes later, and I just want to put them in at one level. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Do you know about MIDI? Sure, I know about MIDI. I'm a geek. And so then I got a job working at the studio because I was an actor in a theater company in town. I spoke actor. They were all musicians doing the dubbing directing, and they wanted me to help translate musician into actor, so they taught me to engineer, so I'd be there for the sessions, and the director would ask me, why is he not doing what I want? You know what I want, right? And I'd say, yeah. Try telling him this. So you would tell him that, and then that's how I kind of got started. And then, and then there's another story about Ninja Turtles, but long. So. That's how I got started.
It's funny you mention musicians, because literally, audio post is where musicians go to die. Everyone who like every musician.
Or finally make money.
Yes. Like I have so many friends. My father was a musician most of his life, and eventually went into audio engineering, which is a segue into how I got into the industry. Did many years of theater, community theater, and actually I was originally going to become an animator and did most of my life doing illustration. I was accepted at Cal Arts into the 2D and 3D animation program.
So you can draw?
I can. It is yet to make me any money, but and I'm a little rusty. But I
So you'll be on my team when we play Pictionary?
Oh yeah. Let me know. You got me. But yeah, then I realized at the last minute, right before I started my first semester at Cal Arts, after speaking to a bunch of animators that work on The Simpsons and Disney, they all went, don't do it. It'll devour your soul. So I got really scared and pulled out. That's what she said. And and then, sorry. That's next panel. And so I kind of wandered for a while, doing some stuff in the game industry, not knowing what to do. And my father, who was an audio engineer, began doing some wall of work because the clients that he would do the music and effects for worked for a company called Animes, and they were also musicians. They would get together and jam, and we started doing wall of bits in anime. And my dad was like, "Hey, you like cartoons? I'm doing voices in cartoons." I'm like, "That's so cool, Dad!" And, yeah, not this over at Mag 8. Les is actually specifically Joe Ramirza and my dad.
Oh, Joe, yeah.
And so my dad was like, "Hey, you want to come along to one of these sessions and watch your old man do voices?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so I went and watched him do a dubbing session for, it was Fisher Yugi, Mysterious Play.
Oh.
And there was like some shouts and combat stuff, or like some sort of just like wall of shouts in the audience, and that was really cool to watch that happen. And then Joe was like, "Hey, why don't you jump in for the latter half of the session? I'll throw this kid a bone." I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool! I made $50." That was awesome. I live in the valley, so that comes naturally. And then they stopped calling my dad back and started calling me instead. He said if it was anybody else, he'd be angry. And then just kind of, did bit parts here and there just for fun for many years, balancing with a full-time job. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago that I decided, I'm getting enough steady work now that I want to at least give it a shot before I have to worry about the responsibility of a family or, being an adult. And so far so good. A lot of hard work and a lot of ramen later.
Did that answer your question? Next question. That is so shocking.
Years ago on the internet, there was some leaked behind-the-scenes bits of the old original Thundercat series, cast like messing around and inappropriately. How close is that to actually what happens behind the scenes at the recording? I think that was my question too.
Well, in any animated series, that happens a lot. Like, seriously, there are certain audio engineers that I'm sure are collecting enough blackmail material where they could own the industry if they wanted to. And yes, well, specifically on Thundercats, there's a lot of that going on. Either plays off that series. Actually, the most recent episode that aired in the U.S. yesterday, I think, has a Sam of Flange reference. So they're called back to the actual outtakes.
Oh, good.
But yeah, like there are. What the? This is Sam of Flange. But yeah, like God, there's so many outtakes I'm sure floating out there from every series that any of us have done.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
I am very serious. And I never mess up, so there are no outtakes.
What if I?
Yeah.
Is Chitara as hot as
Yeah.
Have any of you guys watched Entourage?
Entourage? She's the hot girl.
Sloane from Entourage, Emmanuelle Shrieky.
Yeah.
She voices Chitara in the series. So I'd say she's hotter in person than the actual animated character. She walks into the booth and everyone's like, anyway.
my studio in New York, we had auditions for something, might have been, I don't know, Cutie Honey movie or something, and we were looking for old, mature women who could sound deep and sort of wary and actually mannish. But one of my engineers in the neighboring studio there kept hearing this voice and going, God, I know what that. My inner child is screaming out, recognize that voice. So he jumps up from his console and runs in there and looks at the sign-in sheet and then Googles her name. He's like, she was Chitara from Thundercats. And then he looks up and he's this woman and she's wearing a Chitara t-shirt. He's like, it's on the nose, but whoa. She too was hot. Milky hot.
Actually, I guess it really depends on the performer, but there's one actress named Pamela Adlon. If you don't know the name, she was Bobby Hill in King of the Hill.
Yeah.
She's been in a billion cartoons. She's also a screen actress. I've gotten to work with her on a couple projects, and she is the most perverse human being I've ever been introduced with. And like, to the point where I can't repeat any of these phrases because I'll just turn red and run away. But it's one that, like we have a room of guys, mostly guys. It's always guys in the booth saying blah blah blah, saying ridiculous stuff. And she walks in, and everyone just kind of shrinks away, like, what did she say? She has kids. What are the kids like?
What she said. Yeah, a lot of people in animation work blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's tricky. We're doing a show that we can't talk about yet that has children in the cast. We have a regular, in every session, 9-year-old. Adorable thing. I have pictures on my phone.
The weird thing is they're all from like a bush across the street.
Yes, I wear trench coats to my sessions, but there's another one, and it's tricky because we're all us grown-up types are used to speaking our mind, and sometimes, what? Yeah, people are saying things. We're like, shut kids. It's hard to stop that. When we're doing Ninja Turtles at 4Kids in New York, we were like in a fishbowl, but we can only see maybe 70% of the room, and the door where people enter we would never see. So sometimes we'd be caught tearing up a blue streak, and the head of production would walk in, or a friend of his with their family, things like that. It's a bit tricky. So the engineer had a little keyword so that he would be like, "Oh, shut up! Stop swearing, you filthy bastards!" It would take things at a time.
There's a place we used to do ESL where like the boss people, the company people, were all those Korean ESL. I mean, for Korea. Oh my God, I can't talk too much of this.
ESL means English is a second language.
So we would do these, we'd record these kind of like tutorial book things, and every once in a while his boss would come in or bring people in, and his code for, watch out, there's somebody in the room, you can't make dirty jokes or swear is watch your enunciation. But I always forget because it's such a obvious, like it's something you might be able to say, and I always forget. I'm always like, what the fuck is he talking about my enunciation? It pronounced up fine.
Yeah, you never know who's going to come in. I was hanging out with the mixer, watching like episode 11 or something of Turtles. It was a big Leo episode, and it was 10 or 11 in the first season, and it was really cool and epic and lots of fight scenes. It was kind of a scary episode, actually. Well, maybe it was a big baby. But I'm watching it, and then all these suits start piling in the room, and Robert De Niro was coming to show his kids around because they liked Ninja Turtles and Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're like, what's going on in here? And we're getting pushed to the side, and then De Niro shows up, and then whatever. I get introduced to De Niro. He's very nice. Introduces himself like he needed to. And he's like, I just wanted to say thank you. The kids really appreciate this, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day. And I was like, oh, whatever. And then we start. So then one of the executives, perhaps, I think he's from the Jersey Shore, says, "Hey, well, they're like, get out of here, kid." And then the engineer was like, "Actually, do you guys like Leonardo? This is the voice of Leonardo." And then the suits were like, "What? Hey, why don't you do the voice?" And I was like, okay. But then John Dixon, our great engineer, was like, "Oh, how about I just show you some of the show?" Which is always better. So the kids were like, "Okay." And then so he's showing a scene, and Leo and Splinter are talking about how important the sword is to me. And then Robert De Niro is standing like maybe where this seat is, and he starts watching the show. And he's scratching his chin, and he's looking over at me. And he's back on the screen, he's sort of rocking and nodding, looks over at me, and he's now he's looking at me like 4 times. And I'm standing there like, oh, shut. Robert De Niro's targeting me.
Judging you.
Yeah, maybe. But he's like nodding and sort of trying to get my attention, and sort of leaning in to see if I'll notice him. And I'm like, oh god, I don't know what to do. And then I just look over at him for a second, and he gives me the De Niro face of. My friends I used to do it all the time. If someone did something well, we'd go, you, got a gift, whatever. And so when he did that to me, I almost laughed at his face. I ended up just sort of looking over and ignoring him as much as I could. And then they all leave, and he pushes to the suits to thank me again. What a gracious, nice man. Sorry I laughed in your face, Mr. De Niro. Yeah, so try not to swear too much, because you know those coming up.
I will say alcohol definitely makes things difficult sometimes. If you've seen any of
Drinks
us...
during your sessions?
No, not during the session.
Oh.
We should do it on one show. Shaman King.
Did you need to? Is that one?
I mean, at the end of a week, and we're recording till like maybe 10 or 11 at night. The guy that owned the studio, which no longer exists, Sonomat in New York, wonderful guy, Dan Rich, they would order food and go, hey, you want anything? We're going to get some sake. And, yeah, you should have one. And I was like, I don't know that I should. Okay.
I was going to say, they had right before Comic-Con, they had the Japanese director of Studio 4 Degrees C in to go ahead and meet everyone. It was just like a whole, like everyone's coming up and being formal. And
Was that lady?
Yeah, like really sweet, short Japanese woman, very like chic and dressed with glasses, and like, oh, she seems very important. And meet her, and it's really kind of nervous, and nice to meet you, thank you for working on this really hard, it's great. I mean, cut to Comic-Con, at the top of the Hard Rock Cafe at the WB party, and she comes up, smashed on red wine, and starts grinding on me.
But like you said she's really short, right?
Yeah. She's not that short. But so I'm kind of scared for a second season now. No, she was really sweet. She was like, oh, you look like Tiger. I'm like, oh, thank you. Wait, what are you? Why are you looking at me like that? So yeah. That's
Oh! That's where to do that. Tourette's.
You.
Me? Yes, this one is for Michael. It's kind of a specific question because you directed the English adaptation of Giant Robo, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
I love Giant Robo.
We all do. Anyway. That was actually the second adaptation. There was an old one.
True.
In the VHS era. I wanted to ask, were you aware of that when you went to direct Giant Robo? And if you were, what did you try to do differently? Did you take anything from it? Was there anything you wanted to change?
Yes, actually with the Media Blasters release of Giant Robo, they included all versions. There was the Japanese, the old animes, US dub, and then our new one. It's funny, there were a lot of people, it was a pretty old dub. And, you know, the art form has become a little bit more refined since then, and I have a lot of respect for what they were doing, especially at the time they were doing it. But it aired, I think, on being a bit deliberately sort of hokey or camp. And I wanted to make it a little more action and robo. Also, I know that animes had some distinct challenges because they were recording it as it was released, and it took like 3 years for those few episodes to be released. So Daisaku, who ended up getting too old to keep sounding like a kid, I think they had to recast. So I was able to keep one actor for that part, things like that. But I really wanted to sort of bring. I think it's clearly a very stylized piece, but I don't think it's necessarily camp. It's just extra cool in a sometimes bigger than reality way. So I wanted to go for that. I wanted that sort of spirit of adventure rather than comic. That was sort of what I was charged with, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also, we wanted to do a big surround awesome release, but the two guys who had done the sound design for the show had died. And there was really no recourse to get any other original materials or any other input from Japan. So luckily, we regenerated a lot of sound design for that, and then extrapolated from what we had in the 2.0 to make surround, and did a lot of LFE stuff. A friend of mine in New York who owned a big dub stage. It's like a movie theater, but it's really a recording studio, but it looks like a movie theater. She had created a whole library of LFE effects. So for like 5.1, the 0.1 is the subwoofer. We had lots of crazy stuff going through that. I mean, more than perhaps was necessary, but it's a giant robo, so when it walks, it should, like so much Jurassic Park. So that was a lot of fun. But we had to do all this stuff from scratch, and it was pretty challenging, but it was fun. And then I found some really awesome cells in Japan, so I bought them.
Thank you.
The end. You're welcome. Thanks for watching Giant Robo.
Of course.
Oh, I picked the left. Oh, you
No,
picked the
I
left.
picked
Oh, you picked one.
every
I haven't.
single
I'll pick
one.
one.
The girl who scared you.
Yeah.
She's watching you.
What's the weirdest voice acting?
Weirdest voice acting role you've ever done?
That was 2 years ago.
It's just all of us, guys.
No, it's you. Weirdest role.
Or just a strange, scary voice that's challenging.
Challenging. Okay.
Because most of the characters in anime are just so uninteresting and not strange at all.
I mean, there are various animal things. In an anime called Kurakami, I played a little dog that lives in Laura Bailey's cleavage. and actually,
So cute.
Laura Bailey's cleavage?
That's it.
And,
Character development.
yeah. Sorry, Laura. Here we go. I did that, and then I went to Japan and actually got to sit in, because it was a simultaneous release, I got to go to Japan and meet they were recording something different, weren't they?
No, they recorded. Oh, well, the first time you went or the time you
The
went?
one time I went when I met because I met the seiyuu in Japan who played the same part.
We saw
Kuni.
Kurakami.
That was Kurakami, but then we weren't recording it at the same time?
Yeah.
How did I go to see them recording one that I wasn't doing like the next day?
Because they were like actually recording like 2 weeks before.
Oh, because the releases, they were. Yes, so I was in Japan, I saw them record a future episode of Kurakami, and then and I met the voice actress, and she was older, and the way it works in Japan is it's really about seniority. Pretty much the older you are, the more longer you've been doing it, the more respect you get, the more you get paid. And I'd seen them record something else, and two older women in the 70s, 80s came in kimonos, and everyone was just like, oh, like dropped to the floor. It was like, they all totally geeked out on them. This woman was older, and was now known for doing amazing animal things, voices, donkey shows, but yay, high five, what? And then, so she asked me, oh, so you play Puni Puni? And I was like, oh,
Just like that, that's what she sounded like.
yeah, she's like, so, she's like, what do you think is going on in Puni Puni's mind? And I was like, well, I think that, well, he's a really small dog, and he always acts really tough, because his master is so powerful, but he's like, up to every, ne'er-do-well who would otherwise crush this puppy, but he thinks he's tough because Laura Bailey's cleavage is going to kick ass. And so he acts bigger than he really is, he's got this attitude, and she's like, and I go, so what do you think? And she's like, I don't think that much. I think he likes to eat a lot. I was like, oh. Thanks for shutting me up. And I did Pokemon. I had a couple Pokemon, and those are weird because they only say their own name. They're totally mental. Michael! 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 And I think, in Venture Brothers, the first episode, this is really embarrassing. I got cast to be Dean. The day before they did the first episode, they were like, "Yay, we found our Dean, you're perfect. Records in the morning." What? And then when I got there, they were like, "Hey, you worked in anime, can you do a Japanese accent?" And I was like, "Where's this going?" So they wanted me to play Otaku Senzuri. Fanboy 1,000 strokes. Kind of what it translates to. And basically be just as awfully Japanese thick accent as I could, and then have a wank over a laser beam. So I was like, this is, I have friends from Japan, and they're all gonna hate me. Hey, Kuriba boys. It's terrible. So embarrassing. And I just, good, it's being videotaped, so.
As far as challenging goes, I mean, any sort of military game is always vocally challenging because you're in a booth for 4 hours going, "Bogey over the left! Bogey over the right! Bogey by the taco stand! Bogey behind the red car! Bogey behind the yellow car! Bogey behind the blue car! Bogey behind the big car!" 4 hours of that, and you're like, "Thanks for coming." No problem. So those are definitely challenging. Although poor Liam's been destroyed recently from one of the games he's working on.
Yeah, I keep reading his tweets.
Yeah, just if you guys know Liam O'Brien.
Who found out on his trip to Ireland that he's actually more German than Irish. This is like, I don't know, like 5 years ago. He was so excited about going to Ireland. He brought his like wife and kids and the mother country. And then I think they met his dad there, and he's like, "Oh no, we're like mostly German."
I think the most interesting voice I've done for a game I think is actually canceled, unfortunately. It was a Fallout type of game, like post-apocalyptic, and it was Chris Zimmerman was directing it. She's done games like Metal Gear Solid and stuff like that. And the character called for to sound kind of like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, like this like mutated merchant guy. Sound like Gollum, but more pedophile. Actual character breakdown.
More pedophile.
Yeah, more pedophile. And all the lines were supposed to creep out the player as you're purchasing things. Like it's like just getting too close, I guess, and the voice is so like it was like 4 hours of being like, "Everyone sells."
He sells candy.
Sells weapons and ammunition. Hopefully. So that got really creepy, and there were some really awful outtakes on that one. So it was kind of probably a good thing it was canceled. That was one of the more interesting ones. I wish it came out. It would have been a fun one for the
I
real.
don't think I really voiced anything weird. I did Littlest Pet Shop, and that's all animals. 2 and 3. I was Husky Pup. And some other weird things. But I don't know if they ended up keeping. So they had you got cast as certain main animals, and they had other animals like the butterfly and.
What does that sound like?
I know. I don't even remember what I did, but I remember there was a lot of that kind of stuff. It was really hard. And then the third game, Little Pet Shop 2, was easier to record because they would have sentences, right? So whatever, where are you going? And you'd be like, you do it how your animal would say the line. And then the third game, they got a linguist in, right? Who had studied the entire English language and broken down how many unique tones in inflection that we make in a course of a sentence. So we only had to record those inflections. But then we had to record them with different emotions, like happy, sad, and angry. But they're only inflections, so there's rising, fall, and then there's up and down, down, up, short, hot, different things. And so part of, when you're inflecting, your emotion is your inflecting, but then when you only inflect in that certain way, it was very difficult. And then it was very short too. And then the idea in that game was that they were gonna go and take all of these unique inflections, and then the computer was going to put them together to form the sentences. So that's how they did it that time. I didn't play the game, so I don't know how it came out. But that was kind of challenging because you almost go insane when you're just going, it's just the same thing over and over again.
Ooh, Husky Pup. That's a great nickname. Ah, damn it! I shouldn't work in children's entertainment. Next question.
I think she had a question.
In any of your roles, have they run an your most favourite line you've ever read? I'll let you always remember.
It unfortunately did get cut out of the premiere of Thundercats, but there's, in the original script for the series, there was a sequence where I guess the sword gets knocked away from Mumra, and Tiger gets the sword. The Sword of Omens. And Tiger does the whole call of thunder, 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 Thundercats, ho! And the sword doesn't do anything because he's not the king, and it's really sad. But they cut it. But that, like, just being able to say that in the booth was just like the culmination of my childhood. My favorite line, most memorable, was for a game called Fist of the North Star: Ken's Rage that came out. Yeah, exactly. I did a character named Ray, who cuts people up, like cuts them up with fingers, like his hands are all like blades. And I guess whoever the producer was didn't do a full pre-read of the script for fixes for some of the lines. And so I got in the booth and we're doing a series of dialogue lines for this one cutscene, like he leaps down to attack one of the bosses. And the translation into English was, "There's no way you can stop me from putting my fingers inside you." And with a lot of this, like, I just read, you're going really fast down the script for time, and so I finished reading the line, and there's this awkward pause of silence, as I slowly turn my head over to the window, and the producer looks over to the Japanese producer, he looks over to the American producer, they both look back over to me, and he's singing, he slowly leans in and goes, "We're going to go ahead and rewrite that, give us a second." Sounds fun.
I'm not a crook. I guess that it reminds me of recording lots of Venture Brothers episodes. Many lines that have made it into the show, such as, "I don't want to put my face down there, there's pee on it." Or, "Your pussy's soft. Your pussy hates me." And, "I love Hitler and Hitler loves me." Bloody awful. What? Still recording, yay!
And for a great soundboard when he gets back.
A string of like prank phone calls. Someone's pizza. "I love Hitler and Hitler loves me."
I can't remember most of my lines. I have bad, what's the type of memory? I can't, short term, long term? Okay. Yes, I have fish memory. I did a game recently that's funny. I mean, it's not a funny game. It's The Secret World. It's an MMORPG.
That's all it was.
Is that all in the right order? Yeah, there's the one that I remember is they're talking about this, like, they have to, like, there's some hole and some fight, and then the people that they dragged out was covered in this, like, this black goo, and she says something like, we call it, I've since learned that we call it the filth, although I don't know why we don't call it the crazy, because it makes people fucking crazy. Which is kind of weird. That's a line in the game. Like, whenever you come and you talk to her.
I'm gonna pre-order it now. That's kind of awesome.
And I also had to say, because that's the way we do's it.
That's awesome.
I apologise in advance if this question's already been asked, but I was only able to just get in now. All three of you are incredibly talented actors with great vocal range, and I was wondering if there were any roles that you felt that you would want to go for but couldn't get because they were playing for a different sort of political. So in other words, really, are there any roles that you wanted, or do you feel that something from the typecast in certain roles? And this one today is the question.
Yeah. Sure.
cast with a lot of like high pitched roles, and I don't. It's like not how I talk normally. So I always want to play like a good ass kicker. But
So a bit like Ayacon at the start.
yeah, I get a lot of like Hinata, like high, like Mikuru Hinata, like like that. Sounds like that. But I don't get like actually Kenny Adomi, the president of Monet Entertainment, recently at some dinner was like, "Do you ever get hired for your normal voice?" But I was like, "Oh," but yeah, then you play like deeper, sultrier butt kickers would be cool.
I, for the most part, generally get cast in more younger, heroic male type voices.
So a bit like Cascade.
Yeah, like similar to that, like Star Ocean, like Maverick, stuff like that, where it's more younger and good guy. But I just enjoy playing villains so much. But usually they go for like the older, deeper male voices, the graveling, the guys who've been like drinking bourbon and smoking every day for their entire life. They just get that great quality to it.
Work on that in the next panel.
Yay!
Yeah, someday I'd like to do some sort of strange, dark, evil character.
But it's so I did do that once for a game called 99 Nights 2. If you guys played that, I did the voice of the Lord of Night Roland, the kind of the main bad guy in that. And I got a chance to actually do that, which was fun for once. So as far as dream roles go, unfortunately I think they already filled that one years ago. I've always wanted to kind of take a crack at Sephiroth. Final Fantasy VII. Then eventually came out and I was like, he does a good job at it.
No, I've been cast as every role I've ever wanted. There's always stuff you like to do. Sometimes it's a matter of timing. I usually do. I think I started off doing heroic young voices, Leo, stuff like that, Turtles. And then I started getting known for being nerdier. So now it's things like KG in Summer Wars, Dean Venture, dorky. And that's fine by me. It's a part of my soul. And and I like to celebrate the geek. And I think the geek shall inherit the earth. Is that the Bible? Come on.
It gets rewritten every few years.
So I'm into that. But I've recently gotten to play some more perverse and wicked characters. I was the final boss in Final Fantasy 13. Orphan. He's kind of twisted. He wants you to kill him, basically. And in Gundam Unicorn, I'm Angelo, who's a bit of a perv too. Totally gay for Full Frontal. And Full Frontal is a person, not public indecency. Yeah. And it's been fun though. It's just a part of me in the booth I haven't gotten to tap into. Only, across the street from the playgrounds, as was pointed out. In the bushes. I know, that was before I even got drunk, so. Wow. Stay tuned.
Also, I guess the kookier older characters are always really fun. They actually are kooky old people. Plenty of them in LA to play these parts. But it's always fun to be like that. Of course, I'd love to help you. Things like that. It's fun to get those weird character voices parts, but they're all deep rapid.
They're all deep rapid. Oh, would that I could have been a Pikachu.
Has there been a role that you've turned down or you really wanted to turn down because you just really didn't want to do that?
I think there has.
You know what? We usually have to audition. So if you turn it down, you probably turn down an audition. So then it's also you might not have been cast anyway. So
I recently turned down an audition. But I can't say anything about it because it's still secret.
Projects you regret? One of the first games I ever worked on was for a company that I was working for at the time called GDK Media Active. And I got to work with some very talented people. I worked with Kim My Guest and Doug Stone. But it was called Prism, Chapter 1, The Dark Unicorn. where this unicorn with a troll on her back goes and cleanses the land, and I got to be like half the male characters in the game, and the main villain Zartu, the dark unicorn, which was not a cool villain character. That was one of those projects where I was excited to do it because the people I was working with and the team involved, but the game was so bad, and the dialogue was so bad, and the producer who wrote the dialogue was in the booth the whole time, just so excited to hear it come to life, like in the booth sitting with us, just because he liked the proximity. I don't know. It's awkward. You're giving my script life. Yeah, I regret that.
There was a game I regret doing. It was when things were very slow, and I found an audition on Craigslist. I had to drive really far to this place, the address, and I looked at it, and I'm like, this is a house. So I go in there, and...
What section of Craigslist can you find?
And then I go in there, but there's like another girl there, like filling out paperwork and stuff, and they
Put your
seem
clothes back on.
they seem okay, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I've already driven this far. I might as well just like see what it's about, right? And I think I remember it saying that like it was the game was maybe like had mature content in it or whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I go in there, and the booth is a closet, not a closet, it's more like a pantry, and they can't close the door all the way because the mic cable is running under it and like sticking, so you can't. And then, so I'm standing in what I think is a pantry, and there's like sheets, like, you know, and there's a mic stand, no music stand, like, you know, this paper, and I kind of like pull back the sheet, and there's literally cans of food. Like, it's like somebody's, it's not even like they've converted this pantry or whatever. And so I'm like, all right, doing this audition. And they're just like, oh, you know, read these lines, blah, blah. Okay, now do a different voice and like read these lines. And it's just like pages and pages for like a really long, and at some point I look at my watch and I'm like, dude, I've been here for half an hour for this audition. And I'm just, and then it all of a sudden occurred to me, it was like, oh crap, this is probably like an audition. They're probably just gonna take the audition, although I'm thinking I'm standing in a cupboard, so the sound quality can't be good. But they might just be like taking and using the stuff, because it just seems like I was reading way too much for an audition. At some point I said to the guy, I was like, well, I think you have enough stuff, you know, I don't think we need to keep auditioning, and like either it's yay or nay. And he was like, oh no, we're having everybody come in, read for everything, and read it all, and then we're just gonna keep it if we like it, and if we like it, we'll send you a check in the mail, you know? And I was like, and I was about to walk out, but I'm just like, and he's like, oh, we only have like 1 page left. And I'm thinking, I drove all the way out here, I've already been here for 30 minutes, might as well, you know, it's, so I leave. I do my thing, I finish it, and I sign the paperwork, whatever, and I'm like, great, yeah, right, you'll send me a check in the mail and whatever. And then like months later, I get a check for $30. and I'm like, what the F is this check? And also, because I didn't know the rate when I went to audition, and I go in and I look and I'm like, what? And then I see the little notation, and it says, for the game, Bone Town. So I go on YouTube and I look at the trailer, and like I'm in the trailer playing some like Indian prostitute. But the game actually features the voice of Ron Jeremy playing Ron Jeremy. So yeah, I kind of...
Is it a first-person shooter?
Yeah. Oh! It kind of is. Depending on your definition of shooter. Yeah, so...
Next question.
Yeah, when you've done work, whether it's on games or anime, do you tend to go back to those things, experiencing them yourselves from the other side, or is it something you kind of distance yourself from because you've worked on it for so long?
The question was, and after you finish recording a project, do we go back and watch it or play it and enjoy it from the other side? Speaking for myself, and I think for most of us, we're all a bunch of geeks, and we're really proud of a lot of the work we do. I know I probably can't watch and play everything, but there are a number of projects that I will go out of my way and cancel plans and stuff like that to make sure that I get a chance to play, both for research and it's good to hear yourself back and critique, but also because I'm a fucking nerd.
Yeah, plus when you're working, you typically don't have a lot of context, especially if you're doing a dub. You only hear your lines said by you, so you're like, I want to see what that all turned into. The one exception to being able to go back and look at or play my work is Final Fantasy 13, because I could not finish it, and I'm at the end, damn it. I did some soldiers early on too. I'm like, get down. So I was like, that's great. But I want to hear the orphan thing. It was all processed and suicidal and emo, but I couldn't get there. It was too, and I was too busy.
I don't ever hear my stuff in games unless they're cutscenes that I can like go online and like find later. But like I don't ever hear my stuff in games because I'm a crap video game player. Like I'm very, very bad. I actually have to like invite my friends over to beat certain levels and then I keep playing. I like video games. I'm a hardcore spectator. And I am good at like puzzle games and rhythm games. But in terms of like RPGs or fighting games, I'm really
How about platformers?
not good. No. I can't jump to save my life. My thumb doesn't go in a straight line. Like I always like fall and.
Oh, then you'd be great in Final Fantasy 13.
I was playing the Buffy game and I couldn't beat the level where you had to like in the caves and it was really sad. And you have to start over at the beginning. Like the only one I got close to was the Final Fantasy with the Close Your Eyes song or is that
Eyes on Me?
Eyes on Me, but the Renoa. But then I got to the 4th disc and then found out that I didn't get a GF in the 3rd disc and I didn't save. The last time I saved was like the beginning of the 3rd disc, which is like the longest disc, and then I was really mad. Because it took a real long time to kill that Tomb King. And I was like, I have to kill Tomb King again. And then I got distracted for like a month playing the card games. So it takes up too much time. But I don't normally watch. If I watch it, there has to be some space and time, or else to get some perspective. Because I'll just be like, I hate everything, So.
Voices for evil.
Like in the real world, or freak people out.
Real world.
Not real world. We're all the Matrix, man. I think. Well, there was one time in New York where rents are astronomical. I was living in a rent-controlled apartment, which means it wasn't astronomical, but the landlord wants to get you the hell out of there as quickly as he can. So the building I was in had changed hands. I inherited this apartment from my high school friend, whose parents had it for like 30 years, and the rent was nothing. It was great. And unfortunately, his parents, who were a bit thick, in his own words, not mine, what I was doing was sending them a rent check, and then they were sending it to the landlord because they wanted me to pay them a little extra, which is fine. But rather than just me paying them separately, they wanted to write the check to the landlord. Unfortunately, they didn't live at the address, and they put the return address Woodstock, New York. So the landlord went, ha ha ha, you don't live here anymore. Yeah, fine. So they tried to get me out. They would call all the time, and I would be like, oh, they're not here just yet. What do I do? And then we had a leak. I woke up one morning this is a crap apartment, but it was cheap. And anyway, I was an actor, so I woke up one morning to water dripping on my chest. And I was like, oh, what's that? There's water dripping on my chest from the ceiling. So I called them and said, you've got to come and fix this. They're like, we'll only speak to Dennis Cronin, who is the leaseholder. And I was like, your ceiling's falling. There's a bathtub that's going to be in my bed. So I called back as Dennis Cronin. You can go fix this. And I was like, oh, so I can use my voice acting for something. Pretend to be Dennis Cronin. Ta-da. It wasn't really evil.
I know in high school I actually charged friends to call as their parents. And, yeah. Well, no.
How much?
It was $20 for a phone call. Yeah, but some kids really want to make sure that you get an unapproved tardiness or an absence. And I did that in 4 signatures. I probably could go to jail if they had enough information on me. But I'm very good at forging signatures.
Ooh, 4 kids.
You're in
This is really messy.
Bring me a copy. But that was more. Those were my darker period. Nowadays, I just usually mainly mess with the people that drive through. I just think to pick a different accent each time, and go through and try and mess with them as much as possible. Jack in the Box, especially. For some reason, Jack in the Box, people just can't handle it. Like it just world detonates when you come back to the thing. I'm like,
an ultimate, oh, it is, where am I?
Just keep like, sir, are you there, sir? Oh, hi, hey. Just keep it going for like 5-6 minutes, a lot of queues building up behind you. And then they finally get there and the guy's like, here he goes, sir. Goodbye!
There's one. You, yes.
I heard you talking a lot about being in other areas of the media industry. I was going to ask, say I want to be a video editor. So do you reckon I might have a shot getting my foot in the door and voice acting through that? And still be able to keep my job as an editor?
Well, one crossover I know about, a lot of video editors who build what are called animatics will sometimes scratch the voices in things. When I was doing Ninja Turtles especially, we had this guy, Rich, and he was a fantastic Avid editor, but kind of a mumbly guy, and he was always, you'd hear like, Master Splinter, we've got to blah, 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 and then, we've got to get to the sewers. And you're like, oh, thanks, Rich. So, if you're particularly good, someone in production might hear you and maybe they'll tap you for something, but it's not exactly a direct route. That said, we all have weird different stories for getting in, so I wouldn't say no to any of it, except now with, Final Cut 10 being so terrible, and it's another story, but we could talk about non-linear editors after.
I would say, it's pretty hard to be an actor and get your foot in the door even as a voice actor, so use whatever connections you have. In terms of being a video editor, it depends on, like Michael said, what kind of video editing you're doing and who you're interacting with and who of those people might be able to refer you or point you in the direction so that there's a more open door for you to audition. I worked on a project recently, and one of the other actresses was also a producer, but she produces it at an animation studio. So she's already interacting with the other producers and the writers of the show who are going to be doing casting. Since she's interacting with them, she can be like, hey, can I audition? And they know her, and it's it's easier that way than saying somebody in another department, to kind of get your foot in the door. But even if you're in another department, that's probably still much easier than coming off the street and trying to be like, hey, let me audition or give me a job.
Is it?
Oh, is it after? Is that why there's a lot more people in here? 'Cause you know that we're not actually giving out alcohol, right?
But we are accepting it. Actually, does anyone have a shot glass?
This.
Wow. Oh, so I guess we're transitioning panels. It's now after dark. Use your imagination. And,
All right. Chris? I actually don't condition. Shampoo, whatever's cheapest.
Coffee vodka, huh?
Oh. I do want to do that. Best I can. Otherwise it gets greasy. I do want to mention one real fast. Those who are leaving or entering. After this panel, we are having signings. So just make sure you don't go too far.
Matt is going to sign all of us because he apparently can forge it.
Yes.
where? Fantastic question. Where are the autographs? Does anyone working this thing know? Oh. Downstairs in the foyer. with the unicorn table.
The format is this: is we drink, and it's kind of a Q&A and kind of more risque questions if they want to. Yeah, as you know, guys, as you know, just so you're aware, this panel, the idea of this panel is we can be a little more personal and a little more risque with our with your questions to us. But each person that wants to ask a question has to go up to the podium and ask it, and then we flip a coin. You call heads or tails. If you call it correctly, we answer the question. If you call it incorrectly, you answer the question. So think carefully about how you ask your question. And also, because we are industry professionals and because, you know, visibility is an issue we have to deal with sometimes, I would ask there be no videos of this panel, if that's okay. This is